Item requires a vote. Let's go to item 3, and we'll come back to item 2 as soon as Dana gets back then. Consideration of the extension of the city's annual contract for fiscal year 2011 through 2012. Mr. Parker, you're up.
You have 6 annual contracts. This would be the second extension or the third year of going into the contracts. We've looked at it. Joe has looked at it. It just seems to be a good thing to just go and extend this one more time and go forward with it. This will be on your next board meeting to go on and extend, authorize the extension of these contracts. It's no additional cost.
How long is the extension?
It's 1 year. It'll be for the next fiscal year, and then next fiscal year, about this time next year, we'll be putting it out, all of them out to bid again. So,
Other than
third year for these contracts.
other than D, the sidewalk repairs and so forth, are there things that we have on the table? A, B, C, E, and F?
we do something in every one of these every year, pretty much. The one that may not be used is when it's a called bond. That's a contract we have set up for when we have a bond call that somebody comes in and does the work. And then, of course, the bonding company ends up paying for it. But most of them are used annually.
And Mike?
But you know how I feel about D?
How do you feel about D?
No,
She's in favor of them.
I'm in favor. Well, all of them.
Any other questions on item 3? Then we'll skip 2, we'll go back to that, approve the minutes.
Okay,
I so move.
we need to approve the minutes.
Yeah, I move we approve them.
Mr. Barnhill?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 If you don't mind,
Vote on
if you
3.
do a vote on 3 also, as far as a recommendation to the
Okay.
board.
Everybody in favor of recommending renewal or extension of these contracts, say aye.
Aye.
Item 4, consideration of change order number 1, final, for the Monticello sanitary sewers improvements with Scott and Ritter, Inc., for a decrease in the contract amount of $71,000.
This is the final change order. They have decided to drop any request of additional funding for any of the departments that we talked about previously. And as it says, it's a deduction in the final cost of $914.31. The amount that is listed as the final cost is the amount that was used for the assessments, so there's no need to have any change in that.
So the $1,250,333.19.
That's the amount that we used before we started doing deductions, so yes.
All right, let's vote on that then. I always like a deduct.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, here's what's going on in my world. My wife thinks she broke her foot. Oh, no. And we have 2 kids that need to be in 2 different places shortly. What I would like to do, I realize that if I leave, we don't have a quorum, but I don't want all the people here that came here to do business to not get their business done. If we could, Mr. Stuckey and other staff members, if you could tell me which of these items require our action as opposed to our consideration. I'd like to try to get as many of those done as we could, so that if I am going to have to leave shortly, so that when I leave, what's left to be done is reports and that kind of thing. And I apologize not only for being late, but for this unforeseeable event.
There is nothing really that requires per se action other than consideration or making a recommendation to the board. All of them, basically except for number 5, are things, and the status reports are things that we would ask for a recommendation to the board. It could go to the board with just directly.
Yeah, 5 is a discussion item, 6 through 24 are all
Let me-
just
all right, then
various
let-
contract amendments, updates, change orders, that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
then let me ask this, which of these do you think we need to, which of these would you like for the committee? Do we have people here who need
Yeah,
to?
22.
22, we have some people here for that.
Okay,
do five.
that's the kind of thing I'm looking for.
Five.
If we have citizens in particular, or people who traveled to be here, consultants, that kind of thing, that we need to get to. The others, I don't mind if things go to the board with, what's the rule on a quorum? If we lose a quorum, can you do anything?
Really, the function of the committees is kind of your choice, that you use it as a way to streamline some items.
Mayor, you gotta, if we take up the things that we have people here for, and then if Mr. Barnhill and Ms. Martin are willing, with the able assistance of the other, I know, honey, I'm trying, with the able assistance of the other aldermen to make recommendations, even if it's just half the committee.
Perfect.
Okay, all right, then,
We would like for you to do item 7 also, which is the Harley
All right.
Dale, since it has come before you.
let's do 20, let's see, 7, professional services agreement with Oversight LLC for the Harlinsdale Walking Horse Barn construction renovation documents in an amount not to exceed $46,000.
And the reason I say we'd like for you to discuss that, if at all possible, and do a recommendation. This came before you before. You asked that it go back, look at some reduction or some changes in that. That's what this is for. This would be a professional services agreement not to exceed $46,000. However, if the structural analysis design that has been previously done, it can be used, then that would be reduced by $25,000. So, but we wanted to write the contract to a not to exceed, just to cover, make sure we had everything covered, and they'll be working with oversight to, and it's actually SSR, through SSR that was done. I think the main thing is just getting licensed signatures on the plans or something and checking to make sure that it's buildable. Is that right? Something like that. You're not real sure.
I'm not positive about
Okay.
the...
But anyway, that's basically what it is. And then, so therefore, at most, to get the barn to a point where you're ready to bid to do the structural repairs and the re-roofing of the barn would be at most $46,000, but that could possibly be reduced by $25,000.
Plus, you have a $25,000 grant opportunity still in play here from the Tennessee Historical Commission.
But that's the 25 that you just referenced though, isn't it?
No. The 25 I referenced is some work that was done previously when we had a structural analysis done through SSR. They had a structural engineer go look and make recommendations of things that need to be done. So,
And what we don't know with that, Mr. Barnhill, is what will be their fee in regards to stamping of the drawings and any other adjustments that may need to be made, so.
right.
So that everyone understands, and I understand, we're saying that this costs us $46,000 to get to a point where we know that we can stabilize, dry out, and put a roof on. That we don't know how much that is. Is that right?
It's $46,000 at most to get to a bid set of documents
That
for the
allows us
construction, to do what
fix
you
the
just
roof
said.
and use federal money that we got to fix the roof and to take care of some other kind of basic structural dry-in needs.
But when you say get to the point, do you mean this is a study?
No,
It
this
gets
is
us
the
the bid
design.
documents to do
It's
the
the
roof
what?
work. It gets us to the point that we
okay.
can have bid documents for
Okay.
the roof.
So that's what the point is we're trying to get to?
Yes.
Bid the...
Yes.
Okay.
And we've got to do some structural assessments along the way to be able to do that.
Quite a bit of structural work's got to be done. We've got some areas, especially in the center of the structure, where there's a cupola that's up there now. If you were to look on the inside and see some of the framework's probably bowed out, 18, 20 inches, so there's a weight load. So there's quite a bit of restructuring of the roofing system in that facility, along with columns and then some of the foundations.
Okay.
And that's what this first phase is to do, is get all of that hardened back.
Okay.
Mr.
So-
Skinner, Mrs. Peterson.
Sounds like a good idea. This is the first step, and you need to
And?
do it. We don't need to jeopardize grant money.
Well, let's take it, it goes to the board then with the recommendation that we accept the $46,000,
Not to exceed 46.
not to exceed $46,000. That gets us to the point where we stabilize, dry out, and put a roof on. But that 46,000 has nothing to do with drying, stabilizing, or the roof on.
No construction.
No construction. Out of hotel motel tax?
Correct.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was the 22, consideration of the request for water and sanitary sewer availability for 296 Hillsborough?
This is something that has come in before. I just let Eric Gardner explain it because he's been working with it this time. So.
This availability request came in 2007, I believe, first time. At that time, staff was directed to, there had been a couple other ones. This is just outside city limits. It's adjacent to Fieldstone Farms. It's a triangular piece between between Spencer Creek and Hillsborough Road. At that time, staff was directed not to come in with availabilities outside the city limits unless there was an an annexation request alongside of it. This one is outside the UGB, so it won't be annexed in at this point. One thing I didn't say in my memo, they're just looking to build one single family house on top of the hill, but for pressures, they're putting in a 2-inch meter. And so that's why it's not just one SFU, it's 40 based on the meter size. From an engineering standpoint, it's downhill from the top of the hill down to the manhole in Fieldstone. But the property owners are here in case y'all have any questions for them.
Well, what happens
Can they
when
come
the
up?
next person comes in?
Oh.
What happens when their next door neighbor comes in and wants to do the same thing?
Well, you have approved availabilities for properties outside the city limits in the past. We serve water in the Grassland area. Those are all outside of the city limits.
Water is not so much a problem.
True.
The water, we would
Right.
regularly
We've also
extend. I mean,
we've got
plus
some-
saying no to the water doesn't, I think that would be the wrong thing to do simply because no one else is nearby to serve it. When we have had people in our water area ask, we have only said no when we were basically ceding that area to a nearby provider, as far as I can remember.
Right.
That would not be the case here. There would be, the next closest one would be,
As far as water?
Yeah.
Yeah. Harpeth Valley? Maybe more.
like Barry's Chapel or something, right?
HB&TS is over in
Okay,
Cottonwood,
well-
but they can't come over here unless you allow me.
Well,
So.
Sewer-wise, you have approved availabilities for sewer that are properties inside Brentwood,
Yeah.
outside city limits, so.
But there've been reasons for that.
Because it flows downhill, which is the same case here. This would flow by gravity to.
In actuality, there's a couple of properties across the Spencer Creek Road there that are outside the city that at one point had sewer availability. I'm not sure if they ever built the sewer and got it put in, but at one point they did have availability. So, but this would be, and then what's north of them up there is in that county low-pressure system. So if I'm not mistaken, all that north is in the county low-pressure system. So, but as far as the health, safety, and welfare, if something were to be done here, then we would want them on sanitary sewer.
So what's the size of the property?
Is it one?
It's almost 20 acres.
Mr. Willamon, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is it your intent to build on one tract, one home?
There's no track, it's just one big piece of land.
One parcel, that's what I mean.
We're gonna fence and put gates on. My daughters are gonna live there. My daughter's a recording artist here in Nashville, so it's gonna be a home for them, basically.
One home.
One home.
Well, what's on the other side?
Other side.
Fieldstone Farms.
If you were going up Hillsborough Road from here, Miss Martin, and you got to Lexington Park, the traffic light at Lexington Parkway, and looked to your right, there's a slight grassy incline with a bunch of cedar trees above it. Yeah, let me ask staff this. Can we approve the request on the condition that that now and forever, the extent of the use is the single-family home that Mr. Willannon is suggesting?
I don't know that do we have that control since it's not in city limits or UGB? I don't know.
I don't know, we'd have to look at our ability to put that condition on there.
Because
You're saying, because it could turn into 40.
This piece of property, well, this piece of property has been looked at and flipped and optioned many, many times. And every single developer that has ever come to me to talk about it has realized the same problem. It's chock full of cedar trees, which tells me it won't perk, or it won't perk more than
Gravity flow.
enough for one home, or maybe two or three, whatever. It's not, it's certainly, you could certainly never develop it into multiple units without sewer. And that would, and for whatever reason, this piece of property was, as was everything north of Fieldstone Farms, excluded from the UGB. So there, without reopening the UGB, the city could not annex this property and control the zoning and end use of it. I don't know what it is zoned now. Do you, Mr. Willannon, know what it's zoned?
I have no idea.
State residential?
It's under a forested designation, but I mean, I can build the home there. I've been to the county.
Sure, there's no question about that. The question is, how many could you, we're not, I'll put my cards face up. You want to build one home there, I'll work with you.
That's what I'm here for.
Right, I understand that. But what I don't want to do is grant an approval, and then your plans change, and you don't have the property anymore, and someone else comes along and says, hey, this property is worth a lot more money with sewer and water. Now I'm going to go in to the county and get permission to build 20 units.
And
That's the result that I'm not willing to even make possible.
Because you
And
don't
no-
want to make your wife unhappy?
I don't want to make the 2,200 people that own homes in Fieldstone Farms unhappy.
that was possible at one time. Someone did come in and ask for this to be developed into more.
Oh, I've had, Mr. Willannon was not the first person to come to me and have a great idea about how to develop that property. And depending upon what you have in mind, that may not be awful, okay? But the problem with that piece of property, the unique, well, I don't know if it's unique, but the real problem with that property, if that was within the UGB, this would be a lot easier analysis, because we could consider annexing it and applying the city's control over the end result. But this is a giant leap of faith to extend sewer, which, and I do not disbelieve what you're telling me. That's not the point here. The point is, we don't always get to control what happens next, even when we mean well. So what the result that I don't think the city would ever want to enable is sewer is a density permitted by sewer type development under county control that would never have happened if the city hadn't enabled it with sewer. If this were in the UGB, we'd discuss annexing it, and you'd come in and you'd deal with our planning department, and that would be that, whether you wanted one home or 10. And I don't, I mean, there's certainly a lot of results that are different than just one home that wouldn't be a problem, I would think. The problem is you got 20 acres that is developable in a very different way if sewer is extended.
Do you want us to look, I can't answer your question specifically about our ability to put a condition on this, or our ability to work with county zoning to kind of get to that same place. would you like us to move this on while we work on that issue?
Yeah, I mean, if we can,
That back to you and the property owner and see where we get with it?
I'm looking for a simple solution here to build one home.
right.
That's all I'm looking for.
Well, I don't see, excuse me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I don't see a reason you could not approve a sanitary sewer availability for one single-family unit. Now, the SFUs will be based on the meter, but you could approve it that there can only be connected one single-family unit. I don't see that you have a problem with doing something like that. You have that ability.
Connection.
So you'd have one meter, and that's all you,
That's exactly right.
I think you would be well received to put one nice house there, now and forever.
We're going to gate it and fence it, that's our intention.
But, you know, I'm sure it'll be nice. The issue that's going to cause the people that I represent to come screaming at City Hall is a watercolor rendering of 40 townhouses. Somewhere between 40 townhouses and one house is...
Mr. McGlinnan, you don't know me well enough to know, but when I give you when I say I'm going to do something, that's what I do.
As I said, Mr. Willannon, you and I, listen, you and I met, what, 2 years ago? 3 maybe?
3 years.
4 years ago. I don't have any reason to doubt what you say. But I've also been doing this long enough to know that that property gets a lot more valuable with a sewer meter, and that without any disrespect to you at all, something bad could happen in your life that you don't control, and that sewer line is still sitting there, and that property becomes much more developable than it is.
The mayor just gave you the explanation.
The mayor's over there, but the city engineer did.
Also, it could easily become available.
The fine-looking fellow over there in the lavender.
I thought you were the mayor.
I don't want to be the mayor, you don't get paid enough.
Mr. Parker just takes all the titles that are not currently being clung to. He is both the city attorney, the city engineer, and, I don't know.
Assistant city attorney anymore.
Assistant city attorney, okay.
We're going to build a very nice home that
I have every confidence that you will.
you'll be very proud.
We can condition the approval letter such that only one single-family residence. Now, and I want to get away from single-family unit because he could do that, but.
My guess is that the same gentleman who's contemplating putting one home on 20 acres in Williamson County is talking about a nice house. So it may be, the single-family units may end up being 5, but if it's one compound, then fine. I'm concerned about multiple units, not one family. So with that in mind, I don't have any problem with the staff exploring further.
Make sure we say it.
How and, whether it's interlocal agreement and conditions or whatever we want to do, that doesn't cause me a great deal of heartburn.
Well, what causes me a great deal of heartburn is the fact that we are going to have one nice home there with sewer, and then something happens, and that property is sold, and somebody wants to develop it, and they say, well, we've already got a little bit of sewer, just give us another one. Just give us another one. I know how it is. It happens every time something like this comes up, and it has nothing to do with the present owners of the property.
That could happen with anybody.
It certainly does, and so it's the business of this board to be sure that we are protected.
Whatever kind of, and I don't know exactly what kind of restrictions. Like I said, Mr. Land, I take you at your word that you plan to build the one house. We're not terribly concerned about you breaking your word. It's when it's not the 10 of us sitting at the table, it's whoever comes next, that this decision is permanent. And so the end result, we can't make it permanent forever, but we need to do, the city doesn't want to see a bad result there, not only in the next 5 years, but in the next 50. So that's what we want to try to address. That said, I don't have any problem with you working with staff in the county and whatever kind of agreements we need to do to cut you loose to go build this home.
Well, you also have to look at the positive environmental effects of the sewer route. That's another reason we really want it.
You know,
It's
you
because we
just-
know it's better for the
like-
people in the area.
My daughter's saying to you that we could go in there and put septic tanks in there.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
know it's not good.
We
for
don't want
everyone.
that. I mean, we don't, you know, that's, I don't know how many you can put in, but we don't want that.
So
That's
we're
why,
trying to-
that's why the city would entertain, that's one reason the city would entertain extending sewer onto a property that is not and likely never will be within the city.
Let us work that up.
Do you need a motion to approve contingent upon
With that
your...
direction of how we get to the single family, well, the single unit or single connection for this parcel, I think is the general direction.
I'll make that.
Okay, Ms. Martin? Okay, I'll second it, and then with the, I think it's pretty clear what we're asking for. With those conditions and restrictions in mind, all in favor of recommending this to the board for consideration, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Martin is a no. Very well. Thank you, Mr. Wilana. Are there other things that we need to take up with citizens or staff that need a quorum?
Only if you know of something that you saw when you was doing the agenda. If you saw something that you think needs to be done, I mean,
Okay, if not, then I'm
do number
gonna,
five.
if not, then I'm gonna,
discuss it with him. Yes, there's.
I'm gonna go deal with
Recommendation.
all the stuff I didn't see coming. And again, thank you for, sorry for my tardiness, and thank you for your understanding. Mr. Cornhill.
Item 5, discussion regarding various Hillsborough Road, Fifth Avenue North properties. Mr. Parker, you're up again.
Well, this is something that Ms. Peterson wanted to discuss, and she's mentioned it several times. We didn't have time at the last time we met, and so we put it back on the agenda to make sure that it could get discussed. And this is looking at the properties on Fifth Avenue North as to what I think what we want to discuss is what we want to do as far as purchasing any of them or whatever in connection with, as we're going forward with the Hillsborough Road project, because that's the project in the area right now, and it may be that you want some other aspect of it, but.
In July of 2009, the board kind of weighed in on some various aspects of Hillsborough Road, and that resolution is attached here. That's the direction we've been working under as staff, that the board had had given us and voted on, giving us this direction. Specifically on there's the last bullet that highlights 3 properties that we were directed to work to acquire in their entirety, and that's what we've been working to do, and wanted to, I guess, just share that with you, share this map with you. I think Alderman Peterson's intent is to just make sure we're looking globally at all these properties and how all this project, as it's getting ready to move forward, how that impacts the various properties in this area, and just make sure strategically as a city we're looking at those options as well. And so I guess we open this up for further direction, discussion, anything else that you want to do as a board or bring to the board for further discussion.
Ann?
Well, the first thing that I want to show is the idea for the Hillsborough Road from Del Rio to Highway 96 West. If you look at this picture, that was kind of a representation of what possibly could be the development out here, then, if you look at this, I don't think that that's going to develop this way after we had the experience with the flood. And so really, I'm not just talking about the purchase of that particular piece of property or not, although I think that is an extremely important aspect. And whenever I saw on the agenda today, I want to say, is it number 16 or number 17, there was a request to re-engage the consultants for the road there and EG&G for the streetscape on there. So it seemed to me an appropriate time just to go back and revisit this here. I also felt it at the time that it came up, but as I say, I just don't see, kind of much of a possibility that this is going to develop the way it was envisioned whenever the people did this work. What do you say, 4
4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, thank you. Something else that's come up also is that, and I have the Hillsborough Road widening project, just whatever, they're not looking at the pictures of the development, but just looking at the streets here. One of the aspects of that is that there's been continued discussion and plans for rerouting 3rd Avenue so that, in my opinion, it actually goes into that road where the present city property, and what do we have up there?
The hill, that's where we have our vehicle maintenance and our some of our water management operations.
And, we are discussing, and as a part of the new proposed capital improvements, that we make a move from there and go to this site on Columbia Avenue. And actually, if you look in here, it's my understanding from looking at this that they were proposing a traffic light there, where the 3rd Avenue extension would come in and again go over to the hill that we're talking about, that we visited that day before we went out to look at the property on Columbia Avenue. And
Is that a sonic signal?
no, it's not. It's not. It's it would be for the city, in my opinion, there. And the question that I have is, it doesn't appear, if the city makes that move, that certainly that a traffic signal there is not needed. In fact, I drive in that area, many days now because I'm teaching at the Columbia State, which is, up there. And there is a lot of traffic here, no question about it. But in fact, I have never driven down this when there was a problem getting out of where we currently have the 4th Avenue come out, or there's not been a problem with turning left into there if you want to. Not many people do. And certainly I don't see the need for a traffic light here. And actually, I went yesterday morning at sometime close to 7:30, where Franklin High starts their school at 7:30, just to kind of see, because to tell you the truth, I usually come around the bypass, even though it's a lot closer for me to go, through town and up this way. I was amazed. That traffic is free-flowing between Del Rio and 96 West. Where it starts getting to be a problem is up here, Del Rio North, to, and I can tell you, even around Matt Catcher, sometimes real problems there, for traffic. And one of the questions that I sent out yesterday was, would there be a warrant? How we've talked before in other years about other things, about a warrant. When you get to a certain amount of traffic, the state will say, like a traffic light is warranted here, which, by the way, on Claude Yates Drive and Hillsborough Road, they certified that a warrant was needed at least 5 years ago, if not 6 or 7 or 8, because I remember telling them at Columbia State, I said, they say that, a traffic light is justified here. Well, it hasn't happened yet. Well, it will, won't it? Oh, yes, that will. Now, I also understand that even on the state road, that there is now the comment that you do not have to meet their eligibility for a warrant for a traffic signal if it's inside your city limits. But still, I think that ought to be kind of a rule of thumb or something. I mean, if you don't have, I don't know how many cars per hour coming out of this stuff, and as I say, I'm pretty familiar with it. The traffic flows okay. in this part. It's just in that other part that there's a need for extra lanes, extra traffic signal that we were talking about here. And so my idea was, let's look at all of this together, not just with the acquisition of property, but I mean, if EG&G is going to come back and we're going to pay them up to, what was it,
$179,000.
That's right. Then let's look at this, you know, whenever you think about what's happening down here now, I mean, unlike Columbia Avenue, where I do see potential for redevelopment there, I don't see that same potential for redevelopment here.
But there's going to be much more traffic when that road, when Third Avenue, they're trying to move the traffic from that side of town to this side of town. And as it comes down Third Avenue and you get more traffic coming out on Hillsborough Road, that may be where the traffic signal is needed.
Well, what I'm trying to say, though, is, well, you know, now we've got.
I'm not talking about now.
No, but let me tell you what. When you get Matt Catcher around there won't be the traffic in this area that there is now. Because unfortunately, those people are having to come on 96 West and come in this way, or else some other, I've seen some very creative, thank you, creative methods of coming through here at the same time that school is beginning, you know. Creative is a very good way to put it. They're not coming here. And honestly, if you go there now, right now, these...
But I'm not talking about now.
No, but what I'm trying to say is, once Matt Catcher comes in, it's not going to have the...
It's not going to be finished that way.
Well, one thing,
address the Third Avenue signal and the
Okay,
intersection.
okay.
You asked us that question
Yes,
yesterday. We had a chance to look at it real
Okay,
quick.
thank you.
And a couple things, and I'll let Eric and David, who are much more
Please.
expert at this, address it, but it incorporates recommendations from the downtown circulation study, some of which we've already implemented. This is a next step in that, and I think helps provide a sort of a downtown bypass in some ways through downtown. So Third Avenue extension works very much with how Hillsborough is envisioned. And this signal has been part of the plans we've been working on with TDOT on throughout the consideration of the whole of Hillsborough and that whole project. I'll let Eric and David talk more specifically about it. They have more history, I think, on how we got to where we are.
As Mr. Stuckey said, it is a part of the downtown circulation study that has come up with this, and looking at when that was being done and looking at how we got to Hillsborough Road with the configuration that is there now, which is 4th Avenue offset from, and that is a street basically right there next to Sonic going up to the hill. If we vacate that, it'll be sold, so probably developed, but nobody knows what's going to happen there. But anyway, that was the reason for looking at the location that we looked at as far as where it comes out. That is one reason that makes it a full four-legged intersection versus two T intersections right close to each other, and you see problems with that on Columbia Avenue in several places. The other reason is looking to bring it there is when we first started talking about it, if we were going to look at signalization, we needed to move that intersection to get it further away from Del Rio Pike. Again, separation from intersections that are signalized. So that's where we came up with that. But it gets back to mainly the downtown circulation. This area, I mean, we have plans for a park that's going to be bringing a lot of people. The traffic is going to be there. You mentioned that when Matt Catcher's built, there will be no traffic or not much traffic on Hillsborough Road. All studies before we started Hillsborough Road, before Matt Catcher was, alignment was set and all, showed that Hillsborough Road still needed to be a 5-lane roadway section after Matt Catcher was built. So that's the traffic studies that were done years ago indicated that was what was going to be needed. So we're still going to have quite a bit of traffic on Hillsborough Road as per the traffic studies. So, and then as far as the signal, it has been a part of the planning. It has been part of the planning that has been approved by TDOT up to this point for Hillsborough Road, et cetera. No, it's not warranted right now. There's nothing there right now. But it's not always the case that you wait to that. The signal there at, just up the road for going into, what's the name of it? Chestnut Bend was put up before it was warranted because the subdivision wasn't built out and didn't have the traffic. So there are times that you do it as you're doing construction, so you get it done. It's cheaper, easier, et cetera. So that's basically it. I don't know what else might be said about it.
Well, I have a question. What is the actual traffic count on any of these streets right now?
On Hillsborough Road?
No, Hillsborough, I believe, does have traffic count there. I haven't had a chance to go back and look at it, and I don't know exactly where they do the counts. But you know, we do some in addition to what the state does. But I'd really like to know, what is it on the, you know, whenever you're talking about the interior, the circulation downtown, I really felt like we did a great deal to help that whenever we made Bridge Street have the configuration that we have now.
Well, and that's from the same study that recommends the
Right, but
extension of
I-
Third Avenue and to create this intersection. So we're really trying to follow that same plan to create a roadway network around downtown that functions better and carries more
But
traffic.
you've got two of them that will parallel each other. If you take this would more or less parallel where Bridge Street is coming out there. And as I say, I would really like to see if we can ask, you know, our companies that do the count in addition to, I would love to see what the actual traffic is on that part of 3rd and 4th north of Bridge Street.
We are in the process of doing downtown counts right now. One of the items that's on the agenda that we didn't discuss is another part of the count. We basically count every intersection every 3 years, roughly. And that's not just, that's the intersections. We also look at some of the other streets, and we've got tubes that we can put out and do on our own counts at any time on some of those streets. But right now, we are looking at the downtown area because we're doing the downtown signal timing. And so we're looking at counts downtown right now. So when those are available, we'll share those.
I would really like to.
The other thing you might want to keep in mind, we keep talking about the network, but 3rd Avenue extension will provide then, once it's done, it will provide a direct access all the way from 96 through town to Hillsborough Road. So that is going to, once it's done, it creates a network, a roadway network there that will allow that traffic to actually get off of Bridge Street some, et cetera. So it's a direct, it will be a direct.
I mean, whenever I come by there in the morning.
I just, you just haven't come by till
Terrible, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, it's backed up on
And
the
keep in
block.
mind too, and I want to go on and bring it up because we'll probably start having these same type discussions if we ever get to that point. As part of the downtown circulation study and the major thoroughfare plan updates we've done in the past, there's also a connection proposed from First Avenue around to North Margin Street. That's similar to what the 3rd Avenue connection is. Again, it is looking at trying to get some alternate routes to come around from having to use the Main Street corridor.
Well,
Completely.
Okay, you're talking about the intersections. Do you do, you know, the different straight ahead, right and left, things like that? For those intersections, or do you just do numbers?
What we're doing on the intersections are movements, the turning
Okay,
lanes, and et cetera.
good.
What we would do for the street itself would be the tube counts, and that would look at how much traffic's on that street.
Well, of course, I try not to come this way, but as I say, actually, I got to Columbia State faster going through town. Now, it may have been an unusual day.
You were
know.
probably creative.
No, I wasn't. I do come up 3rd Avenue, turn, you know, on Bridge, or else cross it, because I can go up and go this way. But I will tell you, I was the only one that turned right there at, you know, at 96 and Hillsborough. I was the only car that turned right.
Mike, David was talking about time
First Avenue around over there. How did that fit into the plans we already have for Bicentennial Park? Was that
It's
included
considered,
in that?
it's considered, it's, if you remember the plan, it shows initially right now, it shows the street there at Second and North Margin extended out to the north. That's where it would tie in, so it's a consideration, it has been considered, because that was mentioned to them.
Another thing that occurred to me the other day, we were at Rest Haven, and some of the newly acquired property that we've demolished the building on is adjacent to the west side of Rest Haven. Now, when you go to Rest Haven, you have to park kind of off the street and on the ditch over there. And as we get more interest from tourists over there, we're hard pressed to have some kind of parking area. And I wonder if this would be the time that we would look at incorporating that into the Hillsborough plan instead of just having a solid brick wall there.
Well, we've got on-street parking planned for part of the Third Avenue extension. Do you know how many spaces?
You mean where are you talking about?
Fourth Avenue, not Fourth.
Now it's dirt.
Right now, as far as the Fourth Avenue and the two cemeteries, and again, this is partially what Third Avenue with the park is, and parking on Third Avenue is to try to keep traffic off of that and leave it the more rural type look that it is now. You may someday, I know someday somebody's going to want to streetscape it, but that's whatever it's called.
That's good.
Economic, community, whatever that development.
Streetscape for those who are...
Yeah, this Clyde streetscape. But anyway, we've chosen so far to try to avoid doing much with that, to try to leave that, as I said, more of the rural that's there now. So,
Okay.
so you'd have Third Avenue with some parking, and the piece of property we already tore down is we had mentioned before, especially if we buy the two properties on either side of that's a possibility of, if nothing else, it'd be good, just grassed and landscape, so it'd look better, but you could possibly provide some parking there for
Parking
people.
for the cemetery, I think that
For
would
the
be
cemetery,
great.
so,
On Hillsborough.
Yeah,
we have-
and make a gate,
Yes.
have a gate from the parking
Yes.
lot into the cemetery.
This would be something that would be
well,
used.
it's right there at the unknown
Kind of lines
soldiers.
up with
It
the
is.
unknown soldiers.
So what do we need to get that incorporated into the plan here before we get too far?
Well, that kind of brings up, there are a lot of things that are different now from what they were whenever these plans were first proposed. And because we're getting ready to engage with these people again, that, I'm just saying, this would be a time to look at it.
A couple things, and we spent quite a bit of time in 2009 going through this and defining this and doing this resolution that was passed. If you want to revisit some of those as a board, I guess give us that direction, because we're going down the line of this direction until we hear otherwise.
Okay, so
and I know Alderman Pearson in particular has asked questions a lot about Third Avenue North Extension. That's a funded capital project. We're moving forward to try to bid that in the next few months. If you want to revisit that project, please raise that now before we
That
bid
is
it.
exactly what I'm doing.
Because we're ready to bid it, because a majority of the board has voted to do that project.
Well, I want to bid it. I want to bid
So,
it.
Well, let me say, whenever that was proposed, the vision was this on Hillsborough. That, to me, is not going to happen.
But
now.
it wasn't going to happen before, it may not happen in the future, because this is not the first time we've had a flood there. That thing has always flooded, every time it rained hard, it flooded, and all this flood did was to show all the newcomers what's been happening to us for the last 100 years. And so, I think we just need to go on with this and do the best we can with what we've got, because it isn't going to change.
Well, let me say, though, one of the things is, we're talking about a fourth of a mile, I believe, a fourth of a mile, and we're talking about, from a high of maybe $7 million to a low of maybe somewhere less than $5 million. we're talking about that for a fourth of a mile, whenever I see that paying for a lot of other things.
Well, what do you want to do with that, Ann?
What I want to do is look at all of this again.
We
say-
looked at it.
Well,
We've looked at it. We've talked about it meeting after meeting. I don't know what you want to do with it. They
wait
want
a
to
minute,
change.
the last time that I remember that it was talked about was back here in, that on that date, whenever we looked at this and whenever we went through at, 2 years ago and set the scenario, that number 7 scenario. And as I say, back certainly within the last 4 years, whenever they were talking about Central Franklin, there were many people on that committee that were saying, oh, we need residential down here. And I said, please do not put residential allowed down here where the people that are in there, whenever it does flood, because I thought it was going to flood again too, heaven knows. I'm sorry, I never wanted to see my thoughts come to reality the way they did. But I want to tell you, if you had, as many people wished, residential down here, whenever that flood came, those people would have been isolated. And I mean, we're talking about not just the way it was some other places here, but you know how this was here. So we have not talked about it in a couple of years, other than my making some requests to look at this. But I think that, again, as you said, now newcomers also see that this floods, not just people who know about it from 50 or 60 years ago, or from 25 years ago.
One of the things we're looking at, just to kind of bring back maybe a couple other points that all maybe bring this picture together, is the update of the capital investment plan. We're looking at our agenda for the 26th, the work session, and actually, through some miracle, it's a fairly light agenda. And we were looking at putting time in that agenda to allow for an hour to an hour and a half of discussion about the capital investment plan.
Either that or started early enough to cover and let us have the time.
So, yeah, we can look at that. The Fifth Avenue North, or the Third Avenue North extension is an element of the existing funding plan, and we're looking at, our assumption is those are incorporated unless the board votes or directs otherwise. And then we're talking about what other elements of the capital plan do we fold into, if any, that the board wants to as we move forward. We can look at that if you want us to bring some summary of the downtown circulation study that drove the Third Avenue North extension, because I think that's where this project really comes from. We can provide you can try to provide some information to help give that, if you want to revisit that project, or if the board's satisfied, we can
I don't need to.
keep on.
Let me ask you, I don't even know the answer to this. Where does that road go, other than up on the hill where the city has?
That's it.
It's it.
So it's not going to go anywhere on the other side?
Good way to get to site.
There's an emergency access on the other side, right there, right where you parked in the little park.
So who is this going to help then?
It's going to help all the traffic.
The traffic going where?
From
Initially, it
Here to
is
there.
benefiting city services because they do have a hard time getting out on
Now, I
Hillsborough
can
Road.
understand that.
Initially, if the city services move, my understanding is the city's going to be looking at selling that property, so it could be a pretty extensive development there, I assume, which it would be the benefit of that. Also,
I would hope they
we
won't
had
have that
worked,
access
we
from
had,
Hillsborough Road, because that floods.
also, we
That's
had
the way they get in and out in.
We worked with the Sonic before the flood, and they knew they were going to, they lost an access to their property, and they were going to lose it anyway because of Hillsborough Road, and when they rebuilt, they did not put that back, and that ends up being access for that piece of property also. So it's a multitude of things, but initially, it's our city services people have difficult
I can
times
understand
getting
that.
out of there at times.
I can understand that.
See, I think, when you bring up issues such as this, which I'm glad that they're brought up, see, I think it ties so much together, because we're saying that we're looking at a piece of property on Columbia Highway to move. Well, I don't know that we've made any decision whatsoever to buy that piece of property, and I don't even know that we even know what they're asking for it. So,
We're looking at options.
and we're looking at moving the streets department there, we're looking at moving something else there. So I guess you'd have the streets department property as surplus property also. So, you know, I think it's some valid points, because when I remember Third Avenue Extension, I'm tying that into the Bicentennial Park, more so that I'm tying it into something else, I'm tying it into that, and whatever vision that someone had for the redevelopment or the urbanization or whatever it is for that section. And just to name the names, say behind Anderson's Garage, do that, and behind the old jail, and the old new jail, and the old jail, and down through there. That's what I envision Third Avenue Extension to be. But I can tell you, Ann, Bridge Street is loaded, no question. If you had the police department in there, we may not do the statistics on that, you will see a 4th Avenue and a 5th Avenue, I'm sorry, 3rd and 4th to be exceptionally high as far as traffic accidents are concerned. So I appreciate those comments. I'm looking at, and if you want to throw it down, I think the purchase of, what was it saying, 306, 308, something else? So all those things tied together, I think we've got to understand that when you do one, it pushes something else then, David. That's basically what we're saying. I've been fairly supportive of the Third Avenue Extension because I saw it in 1999 as the Bicentennial Park that we never did anything with. But at that particular time was like $2 million or whatever it was to build the park down there. And
And now, I mean,
but Ann, I think I appreciate, if we're talking $5 to $7 million for a quarter of a mile of Hillsborough Road, everyone needs to understand that.
you know, there's some things like, you know, buying the property on Columbia Avenue that you could buy for much less than that. And you know, it's just, but it is a big picture. It is a big picture. But I've got to say, my other thing that I've been concerned about is that, you know, even though plans have been made, you know, and things like this, I do not want to ever get back in a situation that we were in whenever we first came on the board, and they said, the police headquarters, they've done all this planning, you can't go back on that now. And I've got to tell you, for everybody that's talked to me about the police headquarters, that have just spoken to me, not having anything to do with that, they have said, we spent that much money on that. We could have done many, many other things besides that. And I just don't want us to get to the place where we are committed, you know, and we are going to do something that later people are going to be saying, why on earth did we do that? I mean, this is kind of like the road to nowhere, that bridge to nowhere where people talked about years ago at the national level. This road, now that I was thinking it just went up there and stopped, but you know, why are we spending up to $7 million for a quarter of a mile to do that here? You know,
And I think that I want to just make one small correction. We had gotten so far into the police station that it wasn't just plans; it was already property acquisition, buildings torn down,
right. You were right.
and all the whole ball of wax. I think if it just been the plans, you may have looked at it a little differently. So I don't want to just let it drop
I agree.
with us having the plans only. So,
no, I do agree with you, and that was one of the things that went.
Mike,
Question, if we would move to Columbia and have the hill up for sale, would not whoever was going to develop that kind of be responsible for signalization there?
They possibly could, yes. I mean, it depends on how you end up setting it up. But again, we're doing construction there. The time you're doing the construction for the roads and all that, that's the time you need to be looking at getting these type facilities set up and built as much as possible. There's the possibility you put it up and you don't even activate it, I guess, if there's a concern in that regard for a while. But now's the time to be looking at getting the majority of the infrastructure required for that, for signalizing that intersection done.
Please don't get into a situation like Carlisle and 96, where the intersection is there, and we cannot seem to get that signal in there.
Well, when we first came on the board, not only dragged this out, because there's 28 items on the agenda, we had $100 and something million designated, did we not, Dave, for downtown? And let's just use the streetscape term, $100 and something million that we were looking at spending downtown on streetscape.
Yes.
Am I close?
I think it's over, it's over 100 million. if
Over
I remember
$100 million. That is unacceptable. And we've gone back and massaged it and massaged it, and looked at it and looked at it and looked at it. And I think you need to, I think guys, you need to look at that quarter of a mile. If it's $5 to $7 million, we need to look at that and see if there's something. And this is not, I mean, nobody's criticizing anybody on anything, but you know what we're in and you know what kind of an economic situation we're in. But I think it was 110 million, but it was more than pocket change.
Yeah, one thing I want to bring up too, as we're talking about the quarter of a mile of 3rd Avenue extension. We had told Ms. Peterson mainly, but we actually told the whole board that before anything went out on that we would come back with alternatives and try to look at cutting. Well, and that's was going to be part of the status report. We might as well go and talk about it. We cannot do that. Since we have the funding that we have, Tennessee Department of Transportation will not allow us to do alternates for bids, et cetera.
Okay.
So what we're going to end up having to do is bid stuff. Then after bid and award and all that stuff, we can come back and do change orders and take stuff out, probably. But we cannot bid alternates, and we ran into that also with McKeon Phase 3. So we were going to bring that up during status, but I thought since we're talking about somewhat now, we need to do that.
We'll have to do a different approach.
And we as staff apologized to Ms. Peterson because we told her we would do this, and we wanted to do this, but we are not able to do this. So it's just.
So whatever projects you have designed for?
We will bid it. Like I said, it can come back, and Paul's been the one talking about it mostly with TDOT, but my understanding is we can change order out stuff, but if there's any possibility that we want to have it as part of the bid, it has to be bid at the front end, and we could change order it out.
Because 3rd Avenue North has the grant money in it,
it has
STP funds.
It's got the STP funds.
State trail money
so
in it, so that's driving how we have to bid this thing.
Well, now, are we still talking about that drawn as it was on the plans for Bicentennial Park?
Yes.
Well, I hope somebody else will look and see what was
That's
on
why
there.
we'll bring it to you.
I am telling you, there are all sorts of things in there, including step down, it's been a while since I looked at it. I think everybody needs to look and see what is on those plans. Because there's a cupola or something like that, there's a pavilion, there's an outlook. Overlook, pardon me. Everybody needs to look at that before we say, now, are you saying that the state is saying we're going to have to do all that, or that we...
They're saying you're going to have to bid it as a package.
Okay.
You can't bid it. What we wanted to kind of do was do it almost like a menu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do certain elements of it and do it as different pieces, and then see the bids and kind of piece it together from there. We're really going to have to pick a general project to bid. We may be able to do some change orders on elements of it, but
right.
Well, now let me tell you.
We have to kind of do it a little different than what we had originally envisioned, because we sort of thought we would take it as different pieces and bid.
If you recall, we do that on our projects all the time. We bid alternates all the time and present to you, well, we can, with what's funded or what's budgeted, we can do this much, or we can take this out. So, but TDOT will not let us do that.
Okay, well, let me tell you then, can we please look at that before it goes out? I mean, we need to look at it on the front end right now. because I'm probably the only one that's looked at it in, what, 2 years? Or maybe more than that? I mean, just look, as I say, I want that brought before us so that we can look at that and see what is included in all of that. And
Sounds like you want this project described to you in greater detail.
that's right.
Both
that's
in
right.
terms of what's in it, but also the benefit of it. Because
That's
this
right.
didn't just come because, this was the number 5 or number 6 priority of the board overall. So there was a benefit seen from it. It does, again, tie into the circulation study that is designed to help the downtown network work better. It's an element of that. So let us try to bring that full picture to you and then see if there's other direction the board wants to provide.
We can bring plans into next meeting.
Please do.
We can give you enough to
Because
look at.
let me say, back in, what was it, 1999, whenever Bicentennial Park was first envisioned, then it got all these very elaborate plans for it. But at that time, our sales tax was growing, what, 10% every year? Everybody thought that we could build anything we wanted to and pay for everything we wanted to. And, I said, my comment, the first year we were looking at things, I said, there are more worthy projects than there's money to spend. And boy, has it really turned out to be true the last 3 years, even more so. And we just need to look and see if we want to do this in the elaborateness as it was envisioned 10 years ago.
Guys, y'all know, sort of, possibly know where we want to go.
And I'd like to see those traffic counts too.
And then give us an estimate on what it would cost to gravel that quarter of a mile.
Gravel it?
Yeah.
With Margaret doing the dozer work.
A walk behind or a ride? David, I think I noticed this was in it, but have we resolved the portion of Mac Hatcher and Hillsborough where there were going to be so many lanes
Thank you.
from Hillsborough to tie into the access into Mac Hatcher?
Have we resolved it?
Yeah.
The resolution that the board, we came before you several years ago and asked you if you would want to go on. At the time, we thought Hillsborough would be constructed first. If you wanted to go on and build Hillsborough north of Claude Yates as the 7-lane section that Mac Hatcher was going to dictate that portion of Hillsborough would be. You said no. So we have not done that. Mac Hatcher plans and scheduling looks like it's going to be built first. And that's part of the reason for these other 2 items tonight is this thing keeps, it's a moving target, so we've got to go back and redo and look at how things are split up and all. But anyway, the Mac Hatcher plans have 7-lane section of Hillsborough Road south of Mac Hatcher and then tapering back to the 3-lane section that we will be building for Hillsborough Road, as it will be back to 3 lanes when you get to Claude Yates Drive. So to answer your question, I'm going through all that to answer your question. You resolved it in your minds as far as there was not going to be 7 lanes. The plans for Mac Hatcher has 7 lanes. That's what it takes for that intersection, for the traffic, et cetera, et cetera. That is the direction, the design, the direction that it is a TDOT project. We're designing it, but under their direction. So that is a 7-lane. So it's resolved. You may not like what the resolution is, but right at this point, it's beyond our control as to what that is. So, but that's part of what the extra costs are for, or going back and looking at, and the fact that this, if you remember, we've gone through and done 2 contracts now with TDOT, et cetera. So it's such a moving target, it's unreal. If we could have just had TDOT build it years ago at 5 lanes, we'd have been set.
I have one question.
Does that answer your question, Mike?
Well, what I'm saying is,
Go ahead.
the final outcome, once we finish Hillsborough, and Mac Hatcher's finished and that access, I would hate for us to have made a poor decision on trying to save right-of-way property instead of making it the traffic connection that it can be.
I don't think that's going to happen, Mike.
It is, well,
The direction's been given on
the direction's been given. We still think it should be more than 3 lanes. It's not going to be more than 3 lanes except in front of the high school, which is going to be a right turn lane at the high school. So it'll be 4 lanes there. North of Del Rio, about where, was that, Wendy's? In that general area, it goes back up to a 4-lane section there too, to match what's south of Del Rio. So, yes, from 96 north, it'll be 4 lanes. It'll go down 3 lanes, go back up to 4 lanes, with the 4th lane being a right turn lane into the school at those entrances. And then you get to Claude Yates, which will be signalized, and then you start transitioning from the 3-lane up to a 7-lane.
Let me ask you, whenever you say it's going to be 4-lane right turn to go into Franklin High School, that Claude Yates is one of the right turns.
Right turn lane goes all the way up to Claude Yates.
Okay, thank you, because that Franklin High has parking back around that.
Franklin High School and Columbia State. So the 4 lanes will be starting at the southern boundary of the high school, or whatever, what's Chestnut Bend, and go all the way up to Claude Yates Drive.
Mayor?
Yeah, if I could just make a couple of comments, and I applaud your healthy discussion of this, and I just, and I certainly agree with going back and kind of reviewing what we have passed in the past, but I hate to see us start going back every time and reviewing projects, and now we're going to change those projects, because my big fear is that we're going to start something that delays Hillsborough Road, and I think if Alderman McClendon was here, he would fall on his sword saying, don't do anything to delay Hillsborough Road being done. So I think it'd be good to re-educate us.
That's not my intent.
No, and I want to tell you, I would have thought it
I thought I
would have
still
been
had the floor.
Okay.
Thank you. I think it's healthy to go back and refresh our memory, because these projects are complicated, but we do have staff that have studied them, they review them regularly, and so let them give us the lowdown on them next time.
I do want to say.
Thank you.
I thought Hillsborough Road was after Matt Catcher for me as my #1 priority, and I would have expected it and thought that it would have been done, because it was our second priority right after Matt Catcher, before some of the other things that we've talked about and that we've done, that we've actually accomplished. I do understand the complexity of this. I understand that. But really, part of it has been the state and the city working together, and because we're going to have to be we're going to have to be tweaking the plans anyway, based on what we're seeing that we're requesting to re-engage the consultants. This seems to be the time to look at it. But again, whenever I got the things back out again, and whenever I went down there, I actually looked at the plans, I was going, this may have been something that looked great in 10 years ago on Bicentennial, but it kind of got a lower priority than Harlansdale and the Carnton Eastern Flank.
Let's go on to item 6.
Thank you.
We're going to, because we're not through, and this is in a work session, so let's go on to item 6. Then you might well stay there. There's no reason to move. Consideration of the professional services agreement with Smith Seckman Reed for the development and submission of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit renewal for the Franklin Water Reclamation Plant in the amount of $15,000.
This is, and I don't know how much you recall concerning our NPDES permit, but we started the process of a renewal for that 5 years or so ago. It took us 4 years to get it, which they issued it, and it was effective end of October, 1st November, for 1 year only. We have to go back and do a renewal of that, and due to circumstances such as loss of a major player in what we have to do when we do a permit application, that would be Mr. Bates. The staff just is not able to do this application at this time, and SSR, Smith Seckman Reed, is the consultant that helped us with the last renewal. So we've asked them to give us a proposal to help us again to get this application put together and submitted. So that's what this is all about. Typically, at this juncture, we would have been trying to do it in-house, but losing Mr. Bates is keeping us from being able to do that in an efficient and effective manner.
Any questions?
Question. CDM and Integrated Water, are they at the point that they have any recommendations or?
That at this point, it has no play into the NPDES permit. In fact, we have to take what they're saying for the NPDES permit and plug into the Integrated Water Resources
It goes the other way,
plan.
actually.
Yeah. So, but it's a good question. And what this is all about, TDEC is trying to put us and other utilities on the same scheduling for when our permits are due for renewals. So that's the reason we only got 1 year. One reason.
Item 8, consideration of the revisions of the Boyle Cool Springs 2 Joint Venture Road Impact Offset Agreement to include the signalization of the Carruthers Parkway at Corporate Center Drive intersection. Estimated cost of improvement is less than $200,000.
First of all, I want to apologize that I did not get this done in your packet. I forwarded it to you yesterday evening, and it's just, as you noticed from the agenda, I had a lot of agreements to get written. But what this is, we discussed this before, that when we first entered into the offset agreement with Boyle Cool Springs 2 joint venture for the right turn lane on Carruthers for Cool Springs. We talked about we might be coming back and looking at this. They asked if we could help fund it, and we have discussed that with them. In the meantime, we have no funding available, so they're coming back wanting to do the project and add it to the offset agreement that's therefore the amendment to the agreement. This is still based on estimate. Originally, we thought it would come in under $200,000. That's what they got. That's the basic amount they got from a consultant, from a contractor to do the signal work. However, they're also wanting to, and one reason they're really adamant about wanting to do the signal is if they put the signal at this intersection, then they can bring the right turn lane all the way up to Corporate Center Drive. Otherwise, it's too dangerous. So there's some other monies that need to be done to extend that right turn lane. So therefore, that's the reason it's above. Right now, it's at $225,000, and that's the reason it's above what was originally said as $200,000. But again, I apologize. There was 3 amendments or agreements that I sent out to you last night, and this is the first one of those. So,
Would you please send mine to my home email? I asked, about 3 years ago to have everything.
Is that not what I'm sending to you?
No, you're not. No, a lot of people are, but not everything you send me.
Okay. Oh, I thought actually, I thought I had both of them, but okay.
That's what some people do.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry.
Now, is this the one that, I don't know whether it was before the Planning Commission or before us, where we were saying that they just shouldn't have a certificate of occupancy, that they could go ahead and do the development, but they wouldn't get a certificate of
I
occupancy?
think the Planning Commission had some.
The board gave us that. We added,
I don't think
incorporated some language on that.
Planning Commission.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, it was the board.
We did amend that language. They were amenable to that. We did add that in.
Is it in here in this contract, though?
Not in this one, it would be in the original one, probably.
I know, but let's make sure that
We
we
did.
get it in there,
We
because the
amended that.
board did.
We did that then, yeah.
But that needs to be in with this, too, in my opinion.
Well, it will be, it's already in the base agreement, so that doesn't, that
So
that
this is
still
an
holds.
amendment.
Yeah,
This is an amendment,
Okay,
anything that's
okay.
not changed by this amendment is still valid from the original.
And they were perfectly willing to do that.
They were fine with that, and we
That- that's-
incorporated that language
Okay.
at the time.
Item 9, consideration of ordinance 2011-13, an ordinance to replace the Franklin Transportation and Street Technical Standards as adopted by reference in Title 16, Chapter 11 of the Franklin Municipal Code. Mr. Parker, you're up again.
I'm up all the time.
It looks like you're up on all of those, don't it?
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, this we brought to you, I guess it was last meeting, the changes, a summary of the proposed changes for the Transportation Street Technical Standards, and we told you at that time we had to do an ordinance to get it adopted. That's what this ordinance is for. It has been looked at and vetted by the law department, so just recommend it.
The specs are available online. We didn't want to print out all 250-something pages for everybody. But they're available online. I think in the memo it says exactly where they're located and everything.
We don't need you to print that out.
If you want to look at the whole
250
thing.
pages.
But on the memo,
Unless,
from
unless,
last time?
unless Margaret,
Yes.
unless Margaret disagrees on any of these where we're not taking a vote, when you get ready to carry them to the board or the committee or to the work session, they can go 2-0 unless one of us says something different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? Item
I
10.
guess that's something that maybe it's a good time to discuss right now. Do we want to have them as new business or consent? Because basically we have set up
Things
right
you
now.
approve on the committee go to consent.
So if there's something, especially if there's something you don't want
I
as
didn't see
consent item.
anything on here.
Put them on consent and anybody got a question for
Okay,
them? Sure.
okay. But we did pull, we do not have the Smith, Second, and Reed one on
Good.
consent because
That's number 6, right?
Martin has to recuse herself.
Yeah, we've already. pulled that.
Consider, item 10, consideration of the road impact fee offset agreement with Southern Land LLC for improvements made to McEwen Drive and Mallory Lane, City of Franklin, contract number 2011-0047.
This is improvements that were required for the Whole Foods site, and they are eligible for offsets according to our ordinance, and that's what this is all about, so.
Okay.
Number 11, consideration for professional services agreement, City of Franklin, contract number 2011-0063 with Gresham Smith and Partners for the design of the West Main Street Water and Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project in an amount not to exceed $135,000.
This, I think Mr. Hilty had discussed this at a previous meeting some, but this is, we have a sanitary sewer that's 90 years old over on West Main Street that surcharges, et cetera, a lot. And here's another one if you need one more. And this project is to get to the point of fixing that problem, but as we're doing so also, take care of some old water lines and replace rehab water lines too. So that's what this is all about. And this is just to get the design services for this, and just to let you know, we're talking about total estimated construction cost right now, somewhere around $1.75 million for all of this.
So the blue lines, yellow lines, and the red lines are what we're looking at?
Yes.
And all of that?
Well, any brown line you see is where we're going to abandon. Gravity sewer rehabilitation are the yellow lines.
So how do you rehab that?
You go in and line them, et cetera, and work on the manholes and things like that. Part of the problem we have out there is we got a lot of sewage coming through a smaller line, and it's an old line, so it leaks, and it's surcharging, and this sewer goes under buildings. So we can't really take care of all of, especially those that are serviced right with that. So we're going to rehabilitate the line, and it's basically going to be a long service line for multiple buildings. But we'll put in a 12-inch line around this area to pick up all the flow that's coming in from the south, which is
Ninth
the
Avenue.
9th Avenue South.
Natchez.
Yes, so we'll pick up all that flow in the new 12-inch line and divert it around this old line, so.
This is, when we talk about sewer rates and we talk about our funding and financial plan and the utilities, when we were talking about this as a staff, the observation was made, this is a perfect example of what we call rate-funded capital.
Yeah.
It is something that doesn't really add any capacity. It's the cost of doing business in the kind of the older neighborhoods, established neighborhoods, and you've got infrastructure that's 90, 100 years old, not done at all the way we would do it today in terms of location and layout. So we've got to go back in and fix it and make it work and make it function for the long term going forward. But doesn't add any capacity, doesn't add any new customers, doesn't do anything but take care of
Just have to fix
the cost of an aging system, and that's what this does.
Just have
And
to fix it.
keeps us from getting fined.
And having other service issues for our customers.
So that is a significant disruption. What is the construction time, do you?
We don't have a time yet, but it'll
Doesn't matter.
be pretty long, because some of this is going to end up being relatively deep.
Okay.
And you'll do it in sections.
Yeah, it won't all be under construction at the same time.
Okay?
Item 12, consideration of change order number 1 for the McEwen Drive Phase 3 project in an amount of $8,136.55.
This is something where we have a couple of changes we have to make due to some work. I think it's a sewer line had been put in after our plans were done, and so that's what this change order is for. We have to take care of that situation.
Item 13, consideration of change order number 2 for the McEwen Drive Phase 3 project in an amount of $100,000.
What this is an effort for staff. We usually try to get a contingency into our contracts where we can handle minor things and then come back and do change orders later. There again, this is one of TDOT's rules. They wouldn't let us do a contingency. So what we're asking for is to get a contingency of $100,000, which is 1.4% of the construction contract. It will not be in the construction contract. This would be a project contingency that we can still use, but we can get things done and then come to you and get approvals for the change order incorporated into the contract itself. So it allows us to do work orders, which keeps the projects moving smoother, et cetera. So that's what this is for.
Item 14, consideration of the professional services agreement, City of Franklin contract number 2011-0057 with Standifer and Associates for appraisal services for the Hillsborough Road improvement project in an amount not to exceed $71,500.
This 14 and 15, actually, we might as well do in conjunction with each other. The 15 is with the B.G. Jones and Company for appraisal services. We have so many properties for the Hillsborough Road project that we're splitting up the appraisal services where it doesn't take so long. And both of these firms are certified by TDOT to be used. We'll tell you that the way I have written the professional services agreement, Standifer Associates is not to exceed $72,000 now.
So item 14 is $72,000?
$72,000, correct. And both of these agreements have been approved by the law department.
I'll add one thing. We do have to get a review appraiser also. So that'll come next. That's part of the TDOT requirements. We do an appraisal and we do a review appraisal. Review appraisal is a little bit simpler. That'll come probably next month at the next committee meeting.
How can they tell us to do that and then expect us to pay for it?
If we want to take any of their money,
They're giving us some money to the project, so
Remember, they're giving us, like, 1.8
I think
million?
it's 1.8.
1.8.
Like that.
Somewhere, yeah, I can't even remember anymore.
Item 16, consideration of the addendum to the professional services agreement, City of Franklin contract number 2011-0059 with Sullivan Engineering for design services for the Hillsborough Road improvements project in an amount not to exceed $168,835. Dave?
This is where we were talking about earlier, of course. There's been a lot of changes, contract changes with TDOT. We have changed the limits of construction because of the MACatcher. There's been new things done in the area, so we just we need to get some funding set up for our consultants to be able to get this all squared away and ready for bidding.
And some of this has actually been done.
I know.
They
I saw
they
that,
coordinated
yeah.
with Sonic,
Yeah.
with Kroger. They've already done the work, and
But have not been paid for it?
Correct.
we have paid, we paid them their normal monthly bills, but this is extra work that was not part of their scope originally.
But I want to say that 16 and 17 both have to do with the overview of this entire project too. And so, you know, I do appreciate the fact that they have done work for which they have not been paid over and above their regular contract on this. But, you know, until you do the final, you know, unless, I mean, I don't even know what the changes are other than helping with these two properties. And the fact that they're saying there's a turn radius on Del Rio?
There is a turn radius there at Del Rio. When we did Del Rio, we did a 50-foot, and that 50-footer is a compound. Anyway, there's a turn radius on that turn aisle coming off of Hillsborough Road onto Del Rio Pike. Right now, what is happening is delivery trucks are coming through that turn, and they are encroaching up, or riding up on the curb and the sidewalk and breaking it up, et cetera. And that's, we found out there's a problem, so we want to look at addressing it as we do Hillsborough and taking care of it where we don't have that maintenance.
It's pretty tight.
Oh, I agree, but with all due respect, though, wouldn't that have been something that the consultant on Del Rio should have known?
The consultant on Del Rio, which is the same consultant actually,
That's right.
put in a turn radius that is established for that type delivery vehicles. It is supposed to handle it. So I think the problem is the delivery vehicles are actually, I think, going faster through the turn that keeps them from actually tracking through the radius that is there, although the radius that is there is by design adequate for that type vehicle.
Staff has seen vehicles make that turn without the problem, so it happens. This just fixes it. Whether people make the turn properly or not, it's happening, so.
You think this is going to take care of it then, if they're still not making the turn correctly?
Well, it'll make it an even bigger radius, and so therefore they can, yes. There's always the possibility that somebody's still not going to handle it correctly, so.
Item 17, consideration of the professional services agreement, City of Franklin contract number 2011-0060 with EG&G for design services for the Hillsborough Road Improvement Project in an amount not to exceed $179,530.
EG&G, this is the EG&G who has done the streetscape elements, but also a large portion of their contract is to take care of the electrical design, et cetera. So what this is looking at is more the electrical probably than the streetscape elements themselves. Just have to, you know, just leave it at that. We're not sure we're even gonna have to spend all this, of course, but it's something that we're getting set up where we can spend some money, if I'm understanding it correctly.
So I guess my question, you know, Dave,
if we want to look at what Ms. Peterson's talking about as far as down here, we will get with EG&G and see if that can be looked at under the proposal that is a part of this particular professional services agreement. We will have to check on that. It's a good possibility it can, but again, we will verify it and make sure that it can be. If not, we'll come back to you.
That's what I was going to say. This one probably shouldn't be finalized.
Well, we will be talking, somebody out of the engineering department will be talking to him as soon as possible.
Item 18, consideration of the amendment to the professional services agreement, City of Franklin contract number 2009-0091 with RPM Transportation Consultants for construction engineering and inspection services for the Franklin ITS ARRA project in an amount not to exceed $24,500.
This is another one that I sent to you last evening. This comes about because when we were doing the project, we were able to secure more funding, which we extended the project, but we did not extend the CEI services with RPM. We were looking at see if it could be done with what we have, but the CEI services, keep in mind that when we have any federal or state funding, we have to contract out CEI services. State will not allow us to do them. So there are certain things they have to do. So they're going to need more money to complete the project in the manner that is required to be done. So that's what this amendment is for.
A lot of paperwork, the testing, verifying of the installation on the project. So just making sure that we get what we're paying for through construction.
Item 19, consideration of the professional services agreement, City of Franklin contract number 2011-0054 with AECOM for construction engineering and inspection services for the TOC Phase 3 infrastructure and upgrades project in an amount not to exceed $153,500.
Again, this is a requirement that we have to do CEI services because we have funding for this. This is a brand-new contract for the CEI services for what has been designed and is going to be put in.
Will this put us closer to having our camera at Royal Oaks?
Kevin says yes.
Yes.
And by the way, I need to publicly announce that there has been some tweaking done on the traffic synchronization out on 96 East, and it is definitely apparent to somebody that drives out that way.
I thought you was coming through town now.
Oh, that's whenever I have to go my other way.
Oh, you have to go the other way, okay. You make a right turn every once in a while out there.
I have to go to Columbia half the time and come to Franklin half the time. So at first I thought, is this just me or did I just get lucky a couple of times? But then I found out, no, they had done something.
One go talk. Good.
Item 20, consideration of the agreement, City of Franklin contract number 2011-0046 with Avalon Squared LLC for installing a well on city property.
This is off of the McEwen Phase 3 project. It's Avalon Squared. We had already given them, have an agreement with them for use of the detention, or doing a detention basin on our property. They're wanting to be able to drill a well, and we will be able to, with this approval of this agreement, we will be able to get services off that well, assuming that it provides more than 80 gallons per, something, I think
gallons per day.
Per day, or is it per day? Anyway, certain amount of flow. And it's similar to contract that we entered into with Fieldstone to allow them to drill a well in part of our property around the park itself. So it's nothing unusual, and it can benefit all parties.
Any questions?
And it's at no cost to us.
Item 21, consideration of bid award to Myovision Technologies, Inc. of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, in the total amount of $6,267 per unit for vehicular traffic data collection equipment for the Traffic Operations Division of the Engineering Department, Purchasing Office Procurement Solicitation Number 2011-027, $20,000 budgeted for vehicular traffic data collection contract services in 110-82560-41610 for fiscal year 2011.
This is what Eric was mentioning earlier, where we're trying to get to where we can do some traffic counting easier, et cetera.
That's another one of those paragraphs.
Another one of those paragraphs.
Did it run off?
We have been told that we have got to, in all the captions, give enough information for the public to know what we're talking about.
And I will
They
say
know what
this,
you're talking about with that.
this is the
Don't you?
this is the equipment purchase portion. There is some services that will go along with it, and it will stay within our $20,000 budgeted amount.
So we've got $6,267 per unit times
We're buying one unit.
buying one unit.
Yeah, and then we'll get services off of that. We're buying a camera that can do this rather than have somebody out there counting. There's a camera that, and then the company or companies can take the data from the camera and process it and give us the information.
Item 23, consideration of the final change order with Summit Constructors, Inc. for the water treatment plant raw water reservoir rehabilitation project, City of Franklin contract number 20090088, for an increase to the contract price in the amount of $49,962.79 for the final closeout of the project. Total construction contract amount after this final change order is $3,946,762.79.
And with the paragraph, it's self-explanatory. It is a final change order.
And that's the liner.
That's the liner. That is yes.
Item 24, consideration of change order number 2 with Century Construction Company, Inc. for Southeast Corridor Water System Improvements Project, City of Franklin contract number 20090059, for a time extension of the contract to adjust the contract completion date to June 15th, 2011.
This is for the booster station portion of the southeast area water system improvements. There was some problems in getting the electrical all worked out, and it is to no fault of the contractor. This is just strictly a time extension and is no cost.
Item 25, discussion on the FY 2011-2015 CIP prioritization.
We did that Tuesday, so
We need a meeting on that.
we'll bring it to you at
Yeah.
the work session. It looks like
Okay.
we'll have time to do that then.
Any streets project status, and I think we've covered, in and around directly, we've covered most of them.
I just want to add one.
Okay.
On South Carruthers, we did complete right-of-way acquisition on all the properties except for, there's 2 developments that we've got agreements with, and so we're covered on those. We have not actually got the property in hand. They don't want to do that until construction is funded, because they've actually got to purchase the property, so they don't want to spend the money until the city's ready to commit the money. But we've got agreements in place that cover us on that. And then there's been some comments about South Carruthers shovel-ready. Plans are basically complete, but we do have to finish the quantities and everything. There has been some discussion about looking at different options as far as 2 lanes, stopping it at before the bridge, doing different things like that. If we were to make any changes like that in scope for construction, there would be additional work that we'd have to do. So I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Additional work that who would have to do?
That we would have to design. If we decided to go with just 2 lanes right now rather than 4 as it's designed, we'd have to, like I said, we haven't finished the quantities yet, so that wouldn't be that big of a change, but we would have to do a little bit of work. So I just don't want anybody thinking that we can go out there and start construction tomorrow, because we do have a little bit to finish up.
So how far south are we talking about?
To the bridge.
Right now, the plan is to go across the bridge and then tie into the Ladd Park subdivision
with 4 lanes.
4 lanes to the
Two-lane
bridge, come off the bridge.
Four-lane bridge.
Come off the bridge at 2 lane, or we'll taper down to 2 lanes and then go through the subdivision.
That's the way the project is set up right now. But what we're talking about is phasing, doing a first phase, which takes you through the Nichols Bend project and then ties
Into the
Carruthers-
old South Carruthers?
Old South there at the 90-degree bend. So, and only doing it as 2 lanes.
2 lanes.
As far as finished 2 lanes, but you do grading for 4 lanes. So, and if we go to that route, then we have to have our consultant alter the plan somewhat to indicate that's what's going to be constructed. But I think we still got monies left.
We do, yeah. Money's not the issue, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood.
Money's always the issue.
Well, additional money is not the issue right now. It's that it's not ready to go tomorrow if you said it's funded.
But it's pretty darn close.
Yes, exactly.
Not far away.
Item 27, water management product.
Could I say one thing?
Go ahead.
On D, if you look on this one, Third Avenue Extension, it says cost, it's got design in there, and it says construction, $7,644,884. That, if we go with the Studio 8 design cost, that's what they're saying. If we do all of that, that's the reason I want us to look at that and see, do we want to do all of this? Because that's what they have estimated will be the construction for
That's-
that little piece of Third Avenue.
That's Studio 8's cost estimate.
Exactly.
That's
Not
from
ours.
2009.
No, but let me tell you, it was 2009.
Right, and
It's not like-
and since then, the board has directed us to look, that's when we looked at the alternates and things like that. We will
That's the
plan
reason you need to
construction.
Look at the alternates.
Right.
Item 27, water management project status report. Seeing relatively little interest in that, we're going to item 28.
Probably even less interest in the next one.
Status projects, stormwater project status report, item 28.
Jackson Lake was bid. We'll be starting soon. Liberty Creek is out to bid right now. We'll be bringing that to you in May for
Okay.
approval.
Any questions on any of that? And we're back up to 27, I'm going to make that, because
You got some of that already.
we've already done some of that, and we've already done some
Let's
of the
go
other.
home.
Well, let's go. Hey, I'm not sure we can adjourn, Margaret, we don't have a quorum here.
That's the already leave.
All right. Thank you for your time and patience, and
I got some.
it's been a good meeting, thank you.